Okay, gentlemen and ladies, let me introduce myself first. My name is Himanshu Gupta. I'm working for Enterprise Softwares. One of the software vendors is SAP, so I work for SAP, and I'm working as a solution architect. Um, I will be taking your course in supply chain management, which is on the basics of it. Currently, I'm not in India, I'm in Australia, so bear with me if you are having some network problems. To start with, supply chain management is a course or it's a topic which is currently of research focus to get the operation excellence, um, not in terms of practicality of it, but also the academic part of it. So if you go to Google, if you go to any university, you will find tons of literature. So it is purely your interest how deep you want to go into it, but a very interesting topic. I will try to see, how interesting I can make in next 2 or 3 sessions we are going to take, and hopefully we should be good. Am I audible to all of you guys?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you. So this is the typical plan. We will start with introduction to SCM, which talks about what is supply chain management, why it is required, typical, why price, the costing part is related to SCM, fundamental issues currently we are facing in supply chain management, and the basics of principles of SCM. Session 2 will be more in terms of logistic network planning and theory of constraints. We will talk about what is a bullwhip effect in supply chain, a very important effect which governs the current research of supply chain also. We'll talk about how to measure supply chain in terms of performance, how to model it, and what are the typical do's and don'ts of it. With that, session 2 will have an assignment 1, which is a typical online submission for you guys, where you will have multiple choice questions. Session 3 is more customized towards Indian context, why supply chain is important, and typically on road transport, which is the apart from railways, road is a major area of transport which is India uses. GST, a lot of talk, a lot of articles are going in and around GST, and we will try to discuss what is the impact of GST, especially on road transport and given the supply chain management part. It will also have assignment 2, which you can submit, once you are through with the course. It is a case study, and the good thing about case study is that there is nothing right or wrong. It's actually how you approach a typical case and the problems the case is trying to discuss. I will suggest that you guys can, among yourself, create a group of 3 people, and then, you can go through the assignments. You can, there will be some problem statements. So among 3 discuss and put that document and submit that document over there. I will give you 2 weeks for that, so that you have ample of time in your busy schedule to work through. And internet research is definitely allowed. Plus, but please be aware, copy paste is not something which will be appreciated. So try to put your own thoughts over there, uh, and even do not copy with your fellow groups also. And apart from that, final exam. Then there is a midterm exam. Again, it's a case study. Um, 3 hours of case study. Will we have very targeted questions over there? I just want to understand that how well you are formulated over there. Um, Final exam. It will be a theory and a numeric for about 3 hours, and you should be able to pass it. So if you go through these class sessions, if you go to the slide decks and the rating materials, for sure you will not having any challenge in clearing the exams or the assignments or the case studies. Um, if you have any questions, please. Am I audible now? Nazmuddin, am I audible now? Okay, good. Thanks. So we will start with the course now with the formal slide decks. If you have any questions, please do keep typing in your chat window. I will try to answer them, or later in some point in time, I will download that and then I will answer them separately beyond this class. Be with me if you find that I am going very fast, or if you are finding I'm going too slow, please do let me know. Okay. Okay, so first session is your what is SCM, why SCM, and what we are trying to achieve through SCM, and why not SCM. Basically, why people don't like SCM at times. What are the issues and the fundamentals of or the principles of supply chain management. So, in a broad way, let's assume that you are having an industry, so you are trying to manufacture something. So when you are manufacturing something, you also need to have right distribution channel so that you can send it to the right locations, uh, typical warehouses, and from warehouses to the retailers over there and to the customer. Now, from the time it start building up till the time it goes everywhere, you need to have a flow of goods so that the supply remains uninterrupted. This is what supply chain is all about. So, so if you go from the slide, it says that integrate suppliers, manufacturers, warehouses, and stores so that merchandise is produced and distributed at the right quantities to the right locations at the right time in order to minimize system-wide costs while satisfying service level requirements. To understand this, if I need to, let's say we need to buy an iPhone, right? So it is very important then when I go to a store and I'm demanding for an iPhone, that iPhone needs to be available at that very point in time. If I say I do not have that iPhone and you are in need of a mobile phone, you may go to another product, because if the lead time say, okay, after 7 days I'm going to provide you, you might go to another mobile phone, uh, which is from Samsung or from any other company. So which means that it is very critical that this entire chain of supply all the way from the manufacturer to the customer is all maintained, and that's where the chain is formed. Now please remember, when we talk about chain, the strength of chain really lies on the weakest link in the chain. So when we talk about other topics, always understand that um, when you are practically approaching a problem, figure it out that what is the weakest link in that chain, and then you have to work on it. And that's where all the research right now going it, how to identify the weakest link, how to make it stronger. And the moment you make it stronger, some other link will go on the weaker side of it, and then you start working on it. So it is always improving over the period of time, and you always need to identify the bottlenecks over there. Okay, so one important thing which comes in place is that why supply chain management. Okay, fine, we can have speedy movement of the materials and everything, but then why it is so important, or how it is going to impact me apart from the time part. It is actually more on the margins. So when I say I have a efficient supply chain management, it means that every person in that supply chain is going to make the optimal profits which is available there. So it's typically a mathematical model, and it is actually driven by the price. So if I'm able to fulfill my demand well on time, then perhaps I can price my product more aptly to get the maximum profit. Now let's consider a okay. So if I go to this pricing problem, so assume that there is a FMCG, which is fast moving consumer goods, for example, Procter and Gamble or any other company, Unilever, who is manufacturing products. And for example, for a product, the production cost is rupees 2. Now, typically, when we say it's production, it is the total production cost of that item. And the market study says that the consumer demand for that very product is a function of price. So currently, I don't know, what should be the selling price of this particular item. Should it be 2.5? Should it be 3 rupees, 7 rupees? So here I practically have no clue, but my research area says that demand is a function of price, which says that D is equal to uh, 3 6 4 zeros minus 6 and 4 zeros, and P is a price. Now I also understand that this item is sold through a retailer. It's no direct selling. So the manufacturer says that I need to find the value of P, which can maximize my return. So Procter and Gamble is trying to figure it out, that what should be the value of P so that my returns are maximum, with the fact that based on that price, the retailer will get a 5% commission. So today, as Procter and Gamble, I am just focusing on my price part of it. So I'm not bothered what my retailer will assume. I'm just trying to figure it out, what is my maximum price. So this is a typical, and why I'm saying this important, because this will actually help you to understand that why we cannot take supply chain management as one-to-one problem, not as a producer or not as a retailer, but it is a problem from all the way from the producer to the person who is going to buy this. Now, to fix a price, this is we need to know what should be the value of P. Now, if P is the selling price, and if I need to find what should be my profit, then demand, which is this is demand, okay, and this value is my net profit, the price on which I am selling minus the production cost. So this becomes my profit. Now all I need to understand is that I need to maximize my profit as a producer. So in my supply chain, I'm right now just focusing on this aspect. This is a typical quadratic equation, and I hope you all know how to solve this. I will still solve this for you guys. So the maximization will leave P as rupees 4, and if you want me to solve this, so this particular thing will go this way. This will be typically 36 P minus 6 P square minus 72 plus 12P, which is nothing but a typical quadratic equation going to the fact that minus P square plus 8P minus 12, right, going to 0. And since my And to maximize the value of P, right, then P is equal to minus P upon 2A, which is nothing but value of 4. So this is how we typically solve the quadratic equation to maximize P if A is a negative part of it. Now, this means that if P is equal to 4, what is the sales I am going to figure it out? So that again, my demand will be, around 1,20,000 units. My sales revenue can be derived out of it now, and return to the manufacturer is 2,40,000 rupees, out of which the retailer commission will be 5%, which is my revenue into 0.05 becomes 24,000 rupees, and the net profit of the manufacturer is 2,40,000 minus 24,000, giving me 2,16,000 net. Now, in my supply chain, I say this is my demand, and I say this is my price function to it. So, what is the price? I say this is the one. But assume now, if I am looking from the retailer's end, so one part of the supply chain is from the manufacturer, from the producer to the retailer, where I am saying I will give you a 5% margin, and for that I am deriving the price of 4 rupees. Now, from the retailer's end, I need to decide the price P, right? But I know that I will only get 5% of the total revenue. Now, if I solve this very equation, which is the demand function, into the total, the profit I am making plus the margin of what I'm going to do at rupees 4, my selling price will come at 4.9, right? So which means that I am selling at 4, the retailer is selling at 4.9, and based on that, demand becomes 66,000. Sales revenue to manufacturer will be 66,000 into 4, which is 2,64,000. Profit to manufacturer is 1,32,000, and commission to retailer will be again 0.5%. So sorry, the 5% of the sales revenue of the manufacturer, which is 13,200. So the net gain of the manufacturer will now be 1,18,000, but the maximum gain will retailer will have 72,600. So which means what? Case A, when I am saying the price to the customer is 4 fixed, with the fact that the producer needs to have maximum profit, that retailer profit is 24,000, manufacturer profit is 2,16,000, and total gain chain is 2,40,000 rupees. At the same time, if I'm saying that I want to price my customer to 4.9 as per the retailer's maximum profit, where if you look over here is pretty high from this perspective, the total chain gain is 1,91,400. But here the manufacturer profit is less. So case A, this is maximizing. Case B, this is maximizing. Now, none of this situation is ideal for the supply chain because one of the party is not having the optimal profit. So I'm trying. Typically, it says that I'm trying to get some profit out of my retailer. In the second way, the retailer is suggesting that I'm going to take some margin out of my producer. So the whole problem is that everybody, so this is not a chain, this is typically local focus in supply chain. I am talking as a producer, somebody is talking as a retailer. So what is required is a typical chain where this entire cost can be optimized with the fact that everybody is getting the best profit sharing along with the customer where they also paying the right price. So let's say the retailer commission is increased to 80%, right? So what I'm saying is that instead of making it a 5%, I'm making the retailer commission on 18%. Again, the price to customer here I'm saying will be 4. The unit remains the same as case A. Revenue, sales revenue is not going to dip. That remains also the same. Now here you look, the manufacturer profit, right, is going down. At the same time, the retailer profit is going high, but the total chain gain is still what is over here. And this case C is typically what should be going in position for the manufacturer as well as to the retailer. Because in this very case, I'm still buying the product at 4 and everybody is going to make the optimal profit without compromising on the unit selling, on the revenues, and on the margins of the retailer. This explains that when we talk about supply chain, we cannot talk about individual pieces. We cannot talk about producers. We cannot talk about retailers. We cannot talk about end users. We have to link all these people so that we have the right price available at every step with maximum profits which we can get out of it. It also suggests one thing, that we need to move from this local optima to a global optima, which means that I should not work for myself, but I should consider the entire network from production to selling to the end customer as one big problem. That becomes a chain of supply, and we need to manage this very chain considering every other aspect of delivering the service. This converts to the topic of global optima. So today, no one person is manufacturing, no one person is selling. The manufacturing happens at multiple places, uh, converge to different places, and then finally moved to different places. For example, um, I can I have start manufacturing screens at one place, buttons at another place, mobile casing at another place. Then they go to one particular production factory where these all things are assembled, giving to a mobile phone, and then it again goes to different areas of the world to figure it out towards the end user, and then the end user is going to find from n number of retailers. So we need to figure it out the entire value chain over there. Now, to manage this kind of a thing, one is the information transparency, which is very important in supply chain, and we will have a topic on this very information aspect also, which means that as a retailer, as a manufacturer, as an assembler, we need to ensure that information is shared with every one of us. Everyone in the supply chain has been provided with the correct information. At the same time, they are receiving the correct information also and sending the correct information also. And thinking beyond my organization, which means that it's not about me, it's all about the entire supply chain. Now, how to achieve a global perspective? That's very important because when we work, it's difficult to think beyond our own stuff. So global optimization is difficult to achieve because today, think beyond from the fact that iPhone is being sold in Americas, but it is manufactured in China, right? So it's very difficult um, to optimize this kind of a scenario where the manufacturing is not even under control; it is spread all the way to different countries. And why it is? Because very important topic. Global Optima needs information transparency across the chain. So everybody needs to have the right set of information. Everybody should be able to provide right set of information, and that's not something which, as human, we tend to do. Right? We try to hide information, and for this very specific thing, we have a lot of IT solutions, information technology solutions, which are in place. We try to do a demand forecast, the pricing part of it, market research. But again, um, this is all evolving for now. Minimizing information asymmetry. So the way I present my information needs to be understood by the rest of the people who are going to consume this information and need to take action on it. So that is also very much required, but not an easy thing, because the way I present my numbers may not be the same way somebody else is presenting the number. And then again, there are many issues in sharing the information, right? Technical, from the IT perspective, if somebody is using a Java, somebody is using Microsoft, somebody is having another system, and they all are using a different format, different ways of, putting the numbers over there, and it's extremely difficult to integrate these heterogeneous system together. Economical trust. So if I am buying from China, or if I am buying from Americas, there is always a trust deficit that, should I share this information? Will this person is going to harm me with that information, or can this information be used against me? So it's very important that um, economical trust needs to be established. And power shift, who should own the information? So if I'm owning the information, I can do a lot of things with this. For example, right now, Facebook, I believe all of you are using, that is an organization which is not generating any media content by its own, but currently it's own the largest media content in the world. So that's where who owns the information. And today, Facebook, from the social networking, is one of the most powerful tool we have across the world. So that's the power information, and that's where the trust deficit comes. That's where people do not try to share information in the right context, in the right level altogether. Performance measures and incentives. So again, how to measure the performance of supply chain, very interesting topic, still evolving a lot. And misaligning incentives. So what's in for me? I I'm not talking about the whole value. I'm saying, okay, as a retailer, I want to have, let's say, 80% of my margins. May not be practical, but I wish to do that. Similarly, producer says, I don't care about the retailers. I want to maximize my revenues, my profit over there. These are misaligned incentives, right? Sometimes when we move, taxations also becomes a big deal in the company. And then again, why should I share my performance incentives with you altogether? So that all these things are very difficult, even in a local context. Given it, if you move to a global context, it is extremely difficult to achieve this, and that's where we have a lot of trade. We have trade equities treaties with us, right? Open trade, fair practices. We say that we will not operate in monopoly all across the world, but still a very difficult environment to achieve. So, um, if I talk about factors which are challenging global optimization, um, again, complex network over large geographical areas. The networks are spread all the way from India to Africa. Like India export do a lot of export to Africa for industrial machines. If we talk about America or we talk about Australia, they are perhaps the highest importers of almost everything apart from oil. They import almost everything either from India, from China, Southeast Asia region. So it becomes a very complex network, um, and entities, facilities having different conflicting objective. So that's another thing. Supply chain is dynamic system, right? So over the period of time, these parameters keep changing. So sometimes, we start, for example, years back, India is a low cost vendor supplier in terms of software, in terms of most of the things. Today, China is leading the market. And if you go to countries like the US or Australia or other countries, they have typically shut down their own industry because this is no more viable in terms of money to compete with them. So it is a very dynamic environment. So when you say that you are working in supply chain management, you rest ensure that nothing is stable. You need to keep working very hard to improve this, and at times the entire network goes for a toss. Um, Li Feng is a is a company which used to make dresses, and the way it typically works is that the product get designed in Hong Kong. Then the yarn spinning happens in Korea, weaving happens in Taiwan, stitching happens in Indonesia, and then zippers, everything is in Japan, and then again the quality control and shipping happens out of Hong Kong. So different countries are involved, which means that it's very difficult to ensure that all these people sitting out of different countries, they are going to maximize their profit when when this company Lifang is also going to have maximum profits, maximum revenues to the end user. Very difficult situation, but still people do manage this by use of information technology, by use of modeling supply chain over and over again. Evolution of supply chain management. Um, so years back, when we talk about supply chain management, it is working something in pretty much in silos. Um, it is like in 1960s, supply chain management does not exist. It's talk about demand forecasting, um, it is sourcing, purchasing, requirement planning. So all those topics, warehousing, manufacturing, they all are individual topics, but nothing which align them all together. In 1980s, the consolidation start happening, and that's where the demand forecasting, sourcing, purchasing, requirement planning, production planning, manufacturing, they start merging towards materials management. You still have different warehousing and material handling and packaging part, and then the physical distribution, which we talk about, the retailing side of it, inventory, the order processing, they merge into the physical distribution. So that's where people start understanding that we cannot work in different areas without integrating with each other. And when we go to 1990s, it is more of a functional integration where everything we start saying as logistics. So if we talk about, there are a lot of companies we say that they are the logistic companies. So they are the logistic companies, they are managing all this part, but this is more of a functional integration where we all the supply chain aspects are merged at one level. Come 2000, we start talking about the value part of it. So I say that okay, I will sell this product for you, but then what is the value? Is the value is enough? Is the price which I'm paying is really good enough for this very product? And that's where the formulation of supply chain management happen, which talks about information technology, marketing and sales, strategic planning, finance, all driven out of the logistics in 2000. And this is still evolving. um, Supply chain again. Um, Now we will talk about how supply chain and inventory are related. So in supply chain, we always say that inventory is very important because that's how you're going to manufacture your products, and that is what you're going to say out. So in 1980s, we inventory is a major focus on supply chain management, and every organization want to have an operation excellence managing their inventory. For example, just-in-time manufacturing, which is again a typical inventory management system driven out of Toyota production system, which says that I should only get my materials when it is required, just in time. Um, Then we go to the Kanban environment, where we talk about the lean manufacturing, again, a typical way of managing the inventory over there. It's another Japanese way, again at Toyota, where they start managing the inventory. Now, when we are manufacturing a car, the inventory is huge because different models are going to be manufactured at a very rapid pace. And the more, if you have less inventory, you will hit the productions, you will not be able to produce. If you have a huge amount of inventory in place, then you have to pay a cost of storing it. So the first thing from supply chain management comes managing the inventory. Kaizen is continual improvement, another technique to manage inventories in supply chain management, where everybody wants to have a continuous improvement in the system. This is a typical model of lean manufacturing, which talks about uh, the stability, robustness, now, the Kaizen uh, foundation, that continuous improvement needs to be there, and the JIT, um, and the Jacoda Act of Abnormality, which is typically related to Kanban altogether, uh, making ensure that you have the minimum cost with minimum deliverable times of highest quality. So that's where your inventory starts building up, and that's where the first time the industry start thinking about supply chain management. Even in your current environment, holding inventory is a big deal, and still industry is trying to formulate how to reduce the lead times in delivering the product. Countries like Americas, countries like China, the delivery time is very optimized. If we talk about India, we have a huge delivery lags because of our road transport. We are not have any other transport which is on time and faster way of doing it. So type of inventory, we have raw material inventory, which is typically iron ore or plastic materials as an input to manufacturing system. Bought out parts where I simply somebody else is manufacturing for me. I just buy those parts directly and do the assembly of it. Work in progress, typical inventory, which is pipeline inventory. We are working on it, and finished good is the final product, which I'm going to distribute uh, to the other people. Now, my finished good inventory can be a bought out parts for somebody else, and then again, maintenance, repair, and operating supplies, which means that if I am operating something, I need to do a maintenance of my plant, for which I need spare parts, indirect materials, sundry items, for example, stationaries, so on and so forth. So these are the typical types of inventory which are considered inventory management. At the same time, very important for supply chain, because somewhere these inventories are finished product for some industry and a consumer for another industry. For example, if I talk about a typical pen used by me but manufactured by someone else, but the person who's manufacturing needs to understand the demand uh, of other industry to consume his pen or the ink pots. Now, why inventory? So why inventory is so important in supply chain? So as we earlier said, that in supply chain, we need to ensure that we are sending the right product at the right time with the minimum cost at the minimum lead time. And that's where the inventory plays a vital role. So if I am Unilever, if I am selling a product, I need to ensure that I'm able to have manufactured enough of product so when the demand comes, I can send it across. And if I do not have that inventory already built in, then perhaps I will have a lag in delivery, right? Typically happens for products which sometimes you are not able to estimate your demand, that whether it will be a big hit, and that's where your inventory goes uh, out of stock and you're not able to supply it to the market. This happens typically when the Swift cars starts building up. So there's a big demand in asking Swift cars from Maruti stable, and Maruti is not able to deliver Swift, and they have a very big time, almost 3 to 4 months, to get them out Swift to the customers, because they fail to um, adjust the demand of that product, and then when they have to ramp up their inventory, their entire production cycle, that's the lead time. They start looking at 3 to 4 months, which means that a lot of people start buying other cars because they want the cars now, not 4 months down the line. So time lag between placing orders and getting supplies at the point of consumption, very important. So even if as a user I say, okay, I will give you, 100 rupees, shall give me this product. My product might be coming from a different place, which means that at a time I give my order you and you send it to me, there is a lead time. It will not happen uh, immediately. And the variability of lead times are variable. Sometimes you get the same product in 5 days, sometimes you get the product in 7 days, sometimes you get into 3 days. So there is no guarantee of those lead times. Demand variability is also very important, because today I have a demand of 100 pieces of stuff. Tomorrow I have 150 or maybe 50. So if I am building my inventory of 150 pieces, and if I'm not able to sell those 150 pieces, then I'm holding that inventory and making a major losses over there. At the same time, if my demand is 150 and my manufacturing is only 100, then I'm losing the business of those 50 pieces at that important time. Seasonal inventory is very important. For example, the woolen clothes we are talking about, the raincoats, the umbrellas, they are not required throughout the season. So we also need to understand that our inventory will needs to be built according to the season. A typical example is your umbrella. So umbrellas are available throughout the year, but during the rainy season, their demand is high, while the other period of the year, it is on the fairly lower side of the demand. And the pipeline inventory, where we say, okay, my inventory is there, but I still need to get it out. So how to manage the inventory policy? Because when we talk about supply chain management, we also need to understand that we need to have a way to manage our inventory. So the first inventory policy which company applies, EOQ, which defines that economic order quantity. So what is the most economical way, or what is the most economical quantity I should maintain my inventory, so that when somebody is making a demand, I shall be able to fulfill it. Now there is a formula to it. One is the formula is goes like this. It goes like EOQ is equal to square root of 2 into, so it's 2 into annual inventory in unit, annual inventory into order cost, divided by annual inventory carry cost. So 2 and square root of this entire stuff, sorry. So when we say 2 multiplied by annual inventory in units, so we are talking about what is total inventory, and the order cost, what is the cost of each order. So when these three multiplied, divided by the annual carry cost per unit. So if I am trying to store a product in my warehouse, what is the cost of having that material in my inventory, right? So warehouse, that's a standard term. So if I'm keeping a product as an inventory in my stores, there is a cost to it in terms of, somebody is managing it, it is acquiring a space, it has its own parameters over there. So which gives me the annual inventory cost per item. So if I do this formula, I will be able to get the optimal value, the right optimal value at which my inventory level should be maintained. So it will say, okay, the minimum inventory which you should maintain is 50 units. So the moment my stock goes 50 units or 49 units, it will raise my request that I need to maintain my inventories. I get more stuff of the same material. There is periodic review inventory policy, which is nothing but saying that every month I will review what is my demand, uh, what I can supply, and what is my current inventory, and based on that, I will keep raising my inventory or keep loading my inventory over there. An optional replenishment policy is very straight. It simply says that by default I will define that if my inventory is a kind of a safety stock. So if my inventory is going below 20, start manufacturing it. And at times, based on the demand, I can immediately say, okay, produce more. Even it is not 20, but I will say produce more. Or I will say, yes, I don't have a demand. It is going down 20. Let it be. I don't care because I don't have a demand over there. So this is more optimal replenishment policy. Use a lot of IT infrastructure. This is pure mathematics, and this is where a lot of management decision comes in. So we talked about why we need supply chain management. We talk about the basic of supply chain management is driven out of inventory because that is what we are going to sell from one place to another place. So inventory needs to be there, otherwise you will not be able to sell anything from one place to another place or one person to another person. So key issues in supply chain management, inventory control. As on date, there is no optimal way which says, or there is no formula which says that for this product this needs to be in inventory. So it's all dependent on the industry, the business scenario, the demand function, the price functions to manage the inventory, and that's where this is a very important topic. Distribution strategies. So uh, at sometimes people say every city needs to have a warehouse. Sometimes we say the warehouse needs to be at state level. Sometimes warehouse we share warehouses over there. For example, when GST is not there, every state, every city, every state has a different tax. Every city has different um, uh, level of property. So we have multiple warehouses. Today, when we have same taxation across the country, um, we really do not want to maintain multiple warehouses because warehouse maintenance is very costly stuff. So perhaps we like to have one warehouse over there based on distances, or one warehouse may now start um, facilitating more than one state, not one state altogether, more states by one warehouse. Supply contracts again. Each product which I want to procure for my manufacturing, or uh, if I am so if I have one product which I have to procure, there are multiple vendors to provide it, and then where the supply contracts comes in place, right? There are a lot of terms and conditions which goes into supply contract. There's a very complex area to manage, but supply contracts are the key issues in supply chain, and not only locally, but if you go with the global part also, it's a big deal to manage these supply contracts with a lot of term and conditions, that what is free, what are the discounts, the quality part of it, supply contracts. Integration and strategic partnerships. So for example, Walmart is having a partnership with Bharti, giving you easy day, and there are a lot of other partnerships going in, for example, FedEx, right? So Federal Express has its own um, strategic partnerships out of India uh, to um, to do your courier service over here, and then integrating all these scenarios. Procurement strategy and outsourcing. So whom to procure, when to procure, how to procure is one part, and then outsourcing. Is this beneficial for me to do this job, or should I outsource it, right? Consider, I am trying to manufacture a part where I have to drill a hole in a iron plate. Now, one way is that I have that machine, I ask one person to keep doing it, or I actually outsource it. The person do that drilling and send it back to me. We also call as subcontracting at times, but outsourcing is a big deal over here. Sometimes we say that we are doing it, but we outsource our entire stuff to somebody else over there. So this is key issues over here because um, with every changing environment, whether it's economical, political, these policies, these issues keep shifting, their paradigms keep shifting. Product design, a very important thing. So consider, we are not having a very innovative product, where it's a very functional routine thing. For example, your refined oil, right? It's a one-time activity. But if I am talking about sunglasses, fashion apparel, product design becomes very important because if I am not going to sell all my specs which I have made with the current trend, right? Then again, I will be in loss. So if I am selling, for example, a lot of movies come with their own merchandise. So if I am able to sell that merchandise by the time movies in the theaters, I am good. But after that, nobody seems to be interested in those kind of clothes altogether. So product design comes from that perspective. Information technology, again, um, everybody has his own set of softwares, and at the end of the day we need to share that information. So there is no common format, there is no common software which is used across the supply chain, across the globe, and it hampers the information sharing and the customer value. So if I am buying, like the first example we consider, right, the initial cost is 4 rupees. Somebody wants to sell at 4.9 rupees. The idea is that why customer will buy something for 4.9, why not 4, right? So what is the value for the customer in it? Now when I talk about customer, it's not only the end user. If I'm procuring something, I am also a customer for another person. I may rework on that product and sell it further, then somebody else will become a customer for me. So the value at each level um, is very important in supply chain management. And supply chain management is actually convergence of your functional aspects into the value aspect of inventory and procurement. Now, you talk about satisfying customer, and when we say customer, do not think from the retailer perspective. Think from the perspective that somebody is going to buy uh, from some other person. So it can be industry, it can be a retailer, it can be a manufacturer, it can be anyone. So what the customer needs? Customer needs that the lead time should be extremely short, right? So if I want to buy something now, it should be available to me now. Uh, Cost, definitely nobody wants to pay a higher price to any product, right? And then the customization, where we say that we need a variety of things to choose from. Um, let's take the e-commerce example, for example, Jabong or Amazon, right? So when I place an order at Amazon, my first thing is that I should hopefully receive this material by tomorrow. But at times it takes 5 days, 7 days, right? So today the focus is how to reduce this time. At the same time, the price, right? So today I'm manufacturing a product at 10 rupees. Is this a possibility to manufacture it at 8 rupees and pass this to the customer? And customization, which means that what are the variations I have um, for this very product. So for example, when uh, Henry Ford start manufacturing, there is only one color available for the Ford car, which is black. And he says the same lining saying that um, I can give colors, I can give the Ford cars in any color as long as the color is black. So all that Model T is in black color. Today, when we go to the cars, we want to have an array of colors over there, the variations in the car over there, and this is where customization is very high. Now, all those things, it's a typical equilateral triangle, so you cannot have everything in place. So if you have a shorter lead time, you may not have a customization because that will take more time. And as you increase the customization, you will have a higher cost to it. So somewhere this triangle needs to be equilateral so that everything sets in perspective. A very difficult proposition to figure it out. But if a company is able to make this, then we say that they have a very high level of satisfied customer. For example, Maruti Suzuki, or for example, Honda. More challenges apart from what we discussed. There is a change in demand, and when we say that demand is changed, we also need to ensure that we do not have an inventory in place. So, for example, if I am having a product and all of a sudden the demand is dropping, then I need to ensure that I do not have a huge inventory in place. Otherwise, I will make a lot of losses. Work with suppliers to change plans quickly, right? So if I'm, working with 30 suppliers for a typical product, and if there is a variation required, if there is a change required, then I need to ensure that suppliers are able to adapt to it, right? It should not happen that, okay, I agree that I will change it, but my suppliers who are going to give me the raw material, the semi-finished products, they say that, okay, we are not capable of doing so. Then again, the supply chain network breaks right there. Leverage outsourcing while maintaining flexibility. So outsourcing, generally people think from the cost perspective, typically a wrong way of predicting or suggesting outsourcing. Outsourcing actually gives you the flexibility, so that you can do multiple things, and you can do the things where it can be done more effectively and efficiently. For example, if I need to have a uh, rubber part, right? And if my country does not allow me to open a rubber industry because it is very polluting industry, or my real estate is very high, I like to outsource it in a way where rubber as a material is in abundance. It can be supplied to the manufacturing unit in all grades and in well on time, and at the same time I should be able to procure it from that person itself. So outsourcing is required, while maintaining flexibility also. A differentiate with supplier superior supply chain performance, right? Um, so rich selection, fast delivery, dependable delivery. So when we say that, okay, I guarantee you that I will ship you this product without any breakage in it. That's one part of it. At the same time, I will expect that somebody will say, okay, I will give you this product in the fastest time, but I cannot guarantee on the quality over there. So um, we have to differentiate between the performance of supply chain, which looks very lucrative, protect margins in a mature product line, and maintain service while squeezing more out of inventory, fixed capital, and transportation assets. So that's the core where the money lies as of now, because the raw material is pretty much there. The way I manage my inventory, the way I put my capital investment over there, the way I manage my transport assets, is where my operational cost goes down, and that's where the margin lies in. So I need to do this kind of exercise in all my supply chain management exercises. Stay ahead of competitors by being quick to bring new products to customers, or to gear up quickly to support high demand, right? So typically, if I want to succeed in the market, I need to be the first person to cater that market, and at the same time, if that product is hit, I should be able to go with the supply. Typically, iPhone, the first phone comes with a typical touch screen, and Apple was as the first mover over there. Everybody follows Apple, so they are able to click that market and beat the competitors. And again, iPhone is never out of demand, and they are never out of supply either. um, and how can more value can be created. Now, understand value is typically a perception. You cannot quantify it. So cost is what you can quantify, value is pure perception, and that's where we come up with the satisfied customer. So if I am satisfied, which says that if I have that perception that I have procured this product for the right cost and I have received it at the right time, at the right place, then I create a perception that this is good, and that's where the value comes in. So always understand that value is something not cannot be measured. It is a perception which will be built based on parameters to which a market will respond. Now, on the inventory side, common solution: keep inventory of material, time buffer, and excess capacity. Um, you know, General says that okay, let's have more materials, let's have a time buffer. So if I say I can deliver in 3 days, I will say okay, I will give you 4 days, so I have a day margin. And I always say excess capacity. So okay, I can manufacture 100 pieces, let me build a plant which is having 150 uh, capacity. It can produce 150, but I will always produce 100. Now they all have its own pitfall, right? If I'm creating a huge inventory, I will losing money because I have to store that material someplace. Time buffer: if I am saying that I can procure in 3 days and I'm still telling you 4 days, that one day may be a make or break situation for a customer. And excess capacity: again, if I am not going to operate my plant at 100%, then whatever the cost I have put in the infrastructure, I will never able to recover it. So there is a solution, but every solution has a cost to it and there are pitfalls to it. But can we manage this? Yes, there is an optimal way. I cannot have a zero inventory. I cannot have a commitment of 3 days always, and I cannot say that I will never have a plant uh, which is not having an excess capacity. Every plant in the world has an excess capacity, and at times that capacities, are full, and then we have to create more plants to it. So, why carry inventory? Again, inventory is the insurance against uncertainty. So this is what I have told you in previous slides also, that if I have the material with me, I can guarantee you that I will deliver it. So yes, that is the reason I build inventory, right? So um, today, if I go to any car manufacturer, they have their yards where thousands of cars are already built and are placed in their yards altogether, or a mobile manufacturer, or Procter and Gamble. So a lot of inventory has been built over there just to ensure that if there is a demand, I can supply it, right? Now, the pitfall is that if your demand is not stable, if you are too uncertain with your demand, then you may go for a high inventory level, which is a high risk, because if that demand is not met, right, then you are having an inventory which is a lost cost. Or if the demand is extremely high and you don't have the inventory for this, then you are losing business. So in a way, we have to carry inventory. The question is that what is the optimal level of inventory somebody can carry? And there is no hard and fast rule. It really depends on your forecast, your previous demands, your plant capacity, the practices you have in terms of information sharing, and how accurate you can be over there. When I say how accurate you can be, there is no 100% accuracy in supply chain management. You can near to that, but not 100% exact. So let's understand this part. This is the customer demand, right? So the order size varies, right? It's a typical sinusoidal curve, right? So with the time, sometimes it is high, sometimes it is low, but this is a typical customer demand, right? And this may be the retailer's order, right? So when the demand is high, the retailer is not having enough order, so it's saying I'm out of stock. But then when this phase is passing, he understand, okay, now I have to have this product is hot selling, so I need to build my inventory. So the retailers start asking more and more and more and more orders, but the demand is not that high. It is like almost flat over here and increasing. And then it says, I do not want to have this product because this is not selling. I'm building my inventory. So the retailing orders start dipping over here. And that's where it's not able to again manage all the orders. And then again, it is high on the orders, but the customer demand low. So everywhere there is a gap, you will find that either there is a inventory buildup over here or there is a lost opportunity over here just because we do not have a good inventory. And inventory is what the core of supply chain. So I can only supply my inventory within the chain altogether. And this is your distributor order, right? So again, distributor started from here. It goes all the way here because I'm not finding any demand. Then all of a sudden, based on this past practice, I start ordering more, then more, and then more, and then further declining, saying that I have n number of inventories. Now these, ideally, all these graph needs to be streamlined. And this is your typical production plan, which I am doing as a manufacturer. So I started over here, my demand is here, so I always have a delta. And then based on this, I was shooting my production, saying I will increase more. And then when it is again over here, I am lowering my production over here. So if you find that all the people, like the distributors, the retailers, the production, the customer demand, everything is more of a reactive in nature. Nothing is planned over here. It's more very reactive, right? And this is the typical dynamics of supply chain. Now what management gets, right? Typically when you are managing a supply chain management, this is what's going to happen. Customer demand, this is the production plan, right? So this is what they get. They say this is the customer demand, this is my production plan, but what actually the management need is this alignment, right? So this alignment ensures that I am producing what is the demand in the market. So based off my demand, I am doing my production plan. And this distortion of demand, so right, so this is the distortion, this typical noise from here to here, here to here. This is all distortion. This distortion is known as bullwhip effect. Now this effect is the major cause of all problems in supply chain. And this managing this bullwhip effect is typically supply chain management. So if you are able to manage a bullwhip effect, you are able to manage your supply chain. So let's talk again about the flows. So the material flows from source to supplier to converters, then the distributors to the retailers and the consumers. And every person, every source over here is giving you a defined output, adding a value and moving all the way over here. So that's all becomes value added services, right? Now information, now demand flows from here. So this is the person who are going to specify the demand. Information is both ways, right? So uh, we need some information whether this product is available or not. At the same time, they need information whether this product is required or not. So this is the information flow. And then again, reuse, maintenance, after sales services is all the levels. So these are the typical flows in supply chain with the material flow, and optimization needs to be done at each of these levels to ensure that you are having the highest value and you are able to meet your demand. Okay, so next is, sorry. So next is that if I'm a small business, the supply chain management really bothers me. Maybe not because I'm a very small organization. Um, but when it becomes interesting is when you have multiple locations. So if it is one-to-one mapping, you really don't need much into supply chain management. But if you have multiple locations to cater, then it becomes very crucial. When we have a high turnover of inventory, right? If you are having a lot of inventories to be going in and going out, then supply chain is very important. Um, Many recurring transactions are happening. That is where it required. Um, and you need a accurate reporting and tracking. So you need to know where is my product as of now, right? So for example, if you go to any courier company, or for example, if I am, let's say, moving from Bangalore to Noida, and if I am having a truck in place, which is carrying all my household goods. Now, as a consumer, I need to know where my truck is. Has it moved from Bangalore? In which path it is there? I want to locate that information. So that is very important for the supply chain. A great deal of paperwork, right? So forget about forget about the global part. Even for the local supply chain, from every one plant to another plant, from one place to another place, there is a lot of paperwork required. And again, a supply chain becomes very important over there. And definitely, when we talk about supply, we talk about the timely processing of of that particular contract, I will say. So timely processing is very important. So if I am expecting that my product will arrive on Monday, so that I can start my production, or my production will only continue if I'm able to receive something by Monday, then supply chain becomes very crucial and very important, because there is a big dependency start happening over there. So till now, we discuss a lot about inventory. We talk about what are the flows in supply chain management, why inventory is a key of supply chain, because inventory is what needs to be moved from one place to another place. And that's where the supply chain core comes in. But in all places, we also understood one place that information is crucial. So if I need to manage my bullwhip effect, it is important that I have the right demand planning. I have a right production plan according to it, and the insights which will I get from the demand will be the consumer, the retailers, the distributors. So uh, it is very important to share information uh, for a successful supply chain. So what kind of informations is required in supply chain? One is the inventory level. Uh, So what level of inventory needs to be maintained and where they are maintained. A typical example is that one of the warehouses for Procter and Gamble has RFID in place. So, as and when, people are buying a product, they keep tracking automatically that, okay, this product is selling fast. So from the retailer perspective, they keep uh, putting more and more products as and when they become empty on the rack, and the information is immediately start sending to the warehouse saying, okay, now we are left with that many of packets of that product, so send us more. And then the warehouse immediately send a notification to the production saying that, okay, this product is fast moving, send me more products. And then where the manufacturer says, okay, have the inventory, let me create a few more packets of the same product. So inventory levels information is very important, whether it is moving or not, or how fast it is moving. Sales data, what kind of sales are happening, or the bulk buying is happening, or it is only being sold at discounted rates or not. Order status. So if I am placing an order, I need to know what is the status of my order. Has this been done, has been in on road, or I am going to receive it in next 2 days or not, have I received or not. Sales forecast. So again, it's a forecast based on the historic data. So sales forecast is very important if we need to see our demand and need to manage that demand through supply chain. And production and delivery schedule. So based on the sales, based on the sale forecast, the demand forecast, we will be able to plan our production facilities. And again, miscellaneous things like strategic partnering. Should I should I start procuring from this person, or should I, have my warehouses, joint warehouses with this person, or should I, uh, I said, okay, I am not a logistic company. I will not be able to, there is no point of buying, 100 trucks. Rather, I should, outsource this typical road transport to some other company who have an expertise in that. I will just only focus on the manufacturing of it. So those things are important over here. Let's talk about SCM strategy. So supply chain, this is again the continuation of the information part. So supply chain strategy determines the nature of procurement of raw materials, transportation of materials to and from the manufacturer to provide the service, and distribution of product to the customer along with any follow-up service. So based on my strategy of my organization, I will define that from where and how I'm going to procure my raw materials, how I'm going to transport my material, right, from the manufacturer, and to provide the service. Will I will use sea ships, or I will use air, or I will use something else? But that's where the strategy will govern this. And distribution of products to the customer, whether it will be a multi-channel distribution or it's only online, or I have dedicated stores to it, and then how I'm going to provide the service of my products in terms of returns, repairs, exchange programs. So all those are part of supply chain management strategy. And the other component is the strategic fit. So strategic fit refers to the consistency between the customer priorities that the competitive strategy is designed to satisfy, and the supply chain capabilities that the supply chain strategy aims to build. So I have a customer priority, right? So my customer priority is on time, right? That so my SCM strategy needs to cater to that very parameter altogether, and we need to satisfy this. So um, we from the perspective of the customer, right, we need to identify what parameters they are looking to, and based on that we have to put a fitment to it. If I am a subcontractor, I and they are asking me, okay, you need to on time and with accuracy is required, then I will say my supply chain strategy will focus on the quality of the product as well as on time delivery. Sometimes we will say a variation of 1 is fine enough, but availability on time is more important. That's where I will change my parameter, largely focus on time delivery. Now, fitting the supply chain to customer or vice versa. So, I want to have a supply chain which fits to the customer, or I want to have customers which fit to my supply chain. So fundamental thing is understand the customer wishes. So I already said that try to understand what is the requirement of customer, um, and come to a common ground to it, and at the same time understand the capabilities of your supply chain. So as individuals, as organization, not everything is under your control. For example, I may not, road transport is not my key business, right? So I like to outsource it. The moment I say I want to outsource it, uh, and if I want to commit on the lead times, I need to understand that what is the capabilities of the person to whom I am outsourced. I cannot commit on their behalf. I need to have a commitment with them first, and then I can commit to the other person. And then um, try to match these wishes with the capabilities. So that's a typical negotiation topic we are talking about. And biggest challenge, the wishes are endless and the capabilities are always limited. So I want a top quality at the least price, at the best possible time, that too at my door, and somebody should always tell me prior that they are coming. Now, I may not be able to fulfill all these things, because I have limited capabilities in terms of how fast I can come, how well I can match your availability timings. So all these things needs to be sorted out and comes to a common ground over there, and that's the bigger challenge. That's where we call about the supply chain management. So managing these wishes and your capabilities of addressing those wishes is again a topic of supply chain management. So we are talking about innovative products, the functional products. So what is the right supply chain for products? So every product has its own set of supply chain. A perishable goods has its own requirement of supply chain. A non-perishable good is having its own supply chain. A innovative product, a stylish product, fashion apparel have its own um, supply chain aspects. So all those things are dependent on the product. So not every product can have the same supply chain aspects. Uh, there is no uh, blue book which says that okay, if you have this product, this needs to be there, or most of the products will lie in this category. No. So, devising an effective supply chain strategy, you need to consider the nature of demand for the product. So, what is the demand of the product? If it is seasonal, if it is, just for a short term, or this is regular. Uh, so, this is what we need to figure it out. One. So, one is your functional demand, and one is your innovative demand. So functional demand is something which is very regular, right? It is kind of a commodity. So, for example, your vegetables, so that's a functional demand, right? So you always have that kind of a demand in place. Innovative demand is something for an innovative product. So not every time you will have that demand. You will have the demand in a burst, right? So you launch a new product and it's a very innovative product. It will be in fashion, so that becomes innovative product over there. So again, product life cycle. So functional demand having a very long product life cycle. Demand is predictable. Product variety is very minimum. Market standards for lead time are standard stuff over there, and service levels are also very relaxed over here. So for example, let's consider this thing like dalda or the refined oil. So cost of lost sale is low because tomorrow you will again buy it and nobody is going to discard vanaspati ghee. A risk of obsolescence is very low. I think all these things are like commodity. They are here for last 50 years and they will continue for another 50 100 years now. Forecast accuracy is very high, saying that I typically know my demand in this area. I know that every month, let's say 50,000 packets will be consumed, so that accuracy is pretty much there. Product variety is extremely low. You have one or two variants, very standard product, and the product life cycle is long, extremely long. So this product once created will go for years and years over there. So if your product lie in this very category, we will say it is a functional product. On the same time, if the cost of lost sale is high, for example, um, a film star is wearing mm, a sunglasses, which all of a sudden become a big rage, then I need to sell them almost immediately because once that movie is gone from the theaters, I will not be able to capitalize on that demand. So that's where the cost of lost sale is extremely high. Risk of um, obsolescence is very high because it is in today. Tomorrow nobody wants to have that kind of a sunglass. A new level of new design is what market is looking forward to. Forecast is there is no accuracy to the forecast, right? So I cannot say that this spec will be hit in the market. It may not, and again it's just a burst over there. product variety is extremely high, right? So you have multiple variations like black, brown, different kind of shades, different colors, sizes. So everything comes over here, product variety. And product life cycle is again very short, trend in, trend out. So 2 months everything isn't fashionable. The next month everything goes out of the market. So then we will call this as an innovative product. So now the way I will define my supply chain for functional will be different than the way I will define my innovative product. Now, assume one thing, for the functional product life supply chain management, the cost of supply chain is less. For innovative product, the money part in supply chain is high because all these are very high. So I need to bring my revenues quickly, which means a speedy delivery. So perhaps the mode of transport may not be road, it can be air, it can be anything. So again, differences is demand, functional versus innovative products. So product life cycle, functional more than 2 years, predictable demand, unpredictable 3 to 12 months, contribution margin 5 to 20%. Now look here, the margin is 20 to 60%. So we are building this margin because we try to ensure that the typical inventory build, the risk is high. So I want to have higher margins over here. Product variety very low, high, millions of categories. Variants are available per category within the brand, across the brands, across the vendors. Forecast 10%, right? So that's where it goes in innovative products is very high. Average stock out rate 1 to 2%. You will always find those things available on the rack. But innovative product, they sell very quickly because of the demand burst. And end of season markdown, there's nothing like end of season. They have a seasonal aspect to it. And lead time to made other products is 6 to 12 months. Here you have just 15 days. So which means that if I have to manufacture those products within 15 days, the supply chain needs to be super efficient at all aspects, uh, from the raw material till the customer. Now we will talk about physically efficient versus market responsive supply chain. Now these all are types of typical, supply chain strategies. So physical efficient processes. So we will say that primary process supply predictable demand at lowest possible cost, and market responsive processes where we are dependent on the market. Um, so primary purpose of this kind of a strategy is where it is very predictable, vis-a-vis when it is very unpredictable. Manufacturing focus, so maintain high average utilization rate, and deploy excess buffer capacity. So when we have to, I am assuming that this will be a hit, and I am building more of excess buffer capacity over there. The market responsive process supply chain is required, which means that on day one I am selling just one truckload of a material. On day two, the market is hit, and perhaps I need to start working on 3 or 4 trucks um, per day, which means that your capacity needs to be built accordingly, and your arrangement needs to be accordingly. Inventory strategy. It generate high returns and minimize inventory throughout the chain. A very stable product. I can maintain the inventory, and I know I will be able to sell it. Um, or deploy significant buffer stocks of parts of finished good because the demand is a burst, right? So on day one truck, day two, 3 trucks. So perhaps, and my plant can manufacture only 2 trucks a day. So on day one I have to actually, instead of manufacturing one truck, I have to manufacture 2 trucks of product, which I may not be able to sell on day two. So that's where market responsive process. So this is a very costly stuff, and that's where the products which are hit in the market, they are always charged on premium because of this very factors which increase the cost in supply chain. A lead time focus, shorter lead time as long as it does not increase cost, right? invest aggressively in ways to reduce lead time. So again, if it is market responsive, no matter it what takes, air, sea, road, whatever it takes, um, is built into the cost of the product. But yes, it is arrived at that point in time. Here it's fine as long as it is not having an impact on the cost. Um, Again, if it is a physically efficient process, I will go for a supplier who is cost effective. I will say, okay, fine, take another 2 or 3 days, but give me a better price. Here, in the market responsive process, I will not talk about your cost. I will say how early you can give me that stuff. So I will pay you a premium on top of it. A product design strategy, maximizing performance and minimizing cost. Here, it's more of a modular design. So I will have multiple vendors and they will start building those products as an assembly line over there. So the design strategy changes if it is a physically efficient process. So if my product design strategy is maximize performance and minimize cost, think about this strategy, physically efficient process. Um, these four things becomes a quadrant, which will help you to define where my product lies and what strategy I should follow. So if it is a functional product uh, or innovative product, and on this very line we have efficient supply chain and responsive supply chain. So we need to figure it out, where is my product. So if it is a food product, right, so it needs an efficient supply chain, and it's a functional, so low margins are there. But if it is electronic equipment, then it needs a very responsive supply chain, and innovative products are there. Now, anything it goes over here where I will say I have an innovative product, but I will use efficient supply chain, I am losing business in this quadrant. Similarly, if I am saying that I have a functional product, but I have a very responsive supply chain, I am again losing money. I'm wasting my money if I am sitting in this very quadrant. So the optimal quadrants are over here or here. These two are typically waste. This is waste at supply chain level, and this is a loss cost. So putting this into a slide deck, efficient supply chain. It means supply to stock, economical production runs, finished goods have inventory. Oh, sorry. Economical buy quantities, large shipment sizes, and mass order processing. So these are the typical perspective when we talk about efficient supply chain. When we talk about responsive supply chain, we have excess capacity at every place in terms of manufacturing, in terms of transport, in terms of order placement. Everything is excess. Quick changeovers, right? So all of a sudden, if I figure it out that a black is not a hit, brown is a hit, so start putting brown over there. Short lead times, because every time I delay it, I'm losing customer. Flexible processing, premium transportation again. So premium transportation is typically air transport we are talking about. Single job shop order processing. So at one place, so it's a very expensive thing to do everything at the same job at the same shop floor. So you have machines and people, uh, skilled people for all skills available over there. So this is supply to stock. You stock the things and then you sell it. This is supply to order. You order and then you supply it. So somewhere these are major differentiator. Now, supply to order is like your customized cars. For example, your Lamborghini. Supply to stock is typically your Honda, Hyundai cars, which are stocked and then they are made supply. Okay, so till here we discuss what is supply chain. We understand what is bullwhip effect. We understand the role of inventory and why inventory are so important in supply chain management. We understood the challenges in supply chain management, and we also try to look at a higher level that what are the supply chain strategies we can follow. Going forward, we will talk about the 7 principles of supply chain management, which will be the last topic over here. And these 7 principles are defined by Anderson Consulting, which is now named as Accenture. These 7 principles of supply chain are today governing the overall supply chain academically as well as from the practical purposes. So go through these supply chain. Yeah, lot tons of details available in Google over there. But this is where we will continue for most of our discussions. So, first principle is group customer by need, right? So you need to have a customer segmentation. Which customer belongs to where? Some customer are okay with relaxed timing. Some customers are very specific with arrival times. Some customer needs are different than other customer, but you can always segment the customers. So if you know what kind of customers you are catering to, you can design your supply chain accordingly. For example, if my customer is looking for a cost optimization and they are not much into and they are relaxed with the timelines and we are talking about, then I can use a different set of transport system. I can use different level of warehouses. At the same time, if my customer is pressing me on the timelines, if my customer is pressing me on from where I need to ship it, then my supply chain strategy changes accordingly, and that's where the cost starts building in. Now, what is needed, when it is needed, and how much of it is needed, right? So, based on these three parameters, I can group my customers. So, if I'm a bulk buyer, then my priorities are different. If I am a retailer, my priorities are different. If I am an end consumer, my priorities are very different. Um, and these segmentations are irrespective of industry. So each industry will have these kind of customers everywhere. So you need to segment, how to do this. Traditional segmentation approach, industry, product, trade channel, or geography, right? One size fits all approach. So these are the typical traditional approach, which is not a good approach to do so. Tools, include surveys, interviews, industry research, typical old school ways. Uh, Based on that, but today we need segmentation based on their particular needs, because customer now today is a open market, so everybody has access to the internet. People goes internationally, travel internationally, so they are more knowledgeable, more learned now. So segmentation of customers should be based on their needs altogether, not on typical trade channels or geography or industry kind of stuff. And then you need to develop a portfolio of services tailored to various segments. Now, when I say portfolio of services, you will say, okay, this is my premium service. I will charge you, let's say, another 100 rupees for this, but I will give you this much additional things. Typical example is your Amazon Prime. So they will charge you 100 rupees a month, but they will say that you will give you a same day delivery or a next day delivery. So develop a portfolio of services based on that customer segmentation that will actually define your supply chain strategy as such, that what is required in your supply chain. And this is very important, because only then you will be able to maximize your profit. Because if I start building a portfolio for every other customer, I will not be able to manage anything out of it. So um, you need to figure it out, which customer goes to which segment, and do not create segments where nobody wants to go, right? So if I start saying, okay, I will give you, you need to give me another 1,000 rupees for this service, the customer says, I don't see a value to it. So you have to be very practical and pragmatic when you are defining the segmentation over there. And this is in every industry. Segmentation happens in software, it happens in transport, it happens in your manufacturing, it happens in your call centers. So everywhere this happens. Even in the banking, you go to ICC Bank, you will have privileged customers over there, right? So there's a separate section, a separate staff sits for privileged customers over there. So segmentation is very important, and it is applicable industry wide. Second is Customize the logistic network, right? So product distribution is as important as product creation. So in designing their logistic networks, companies need to focus on the service requirements and profit potential of the customer segment identified. So when you are doing a supply chain management, you need to customize the logistics network. For example, some people, some segment needs to go through a typical road transport. They need some tracking details. They need a lot more service. Who is my driver? What they are doing right now? So to you may have to customize your logistic network at times over there, which is very important. Um, Now again, other aspect is like you have supplier, you have multiple warehouses, and then you have multiple distributors, and then you have shops over there. Now, one thing is that I just combined all the warehouses into one, and I do not have a distributor. I do a direct selling to the shops. I just take that distributor network out of it, right? So this is also a logistic network, which is again customized, and it may increase your cost, it may decrease your cost also. So you have to understood that always combining the warehouses is not a good thing, and always moving the distributor is not an easy thing. For example, in China, there is a distribution is something distributor is something which you simply cannot bypass. A very strong network over there. So that network you have to follow. You cannot simply bypass that network in China. In India, with e-commerce, that has started where you straight have the warehouse and it is direct door delivery. So based on many factors, you need to figure out what is the best logistics networks for you. Third is listen to signals of market demand and plan accordingly. It's very important thing that we all understand that how the market is going to behave, what is my demand, and I plan accordingly. Now, there is tons of techniques to do so, but the core of each of this technique is information sharing and my distribution channels, how I'm going to distribute this, how effective I am with my distribution. Differentiate the product closer to the customer, right? So based on whether I do a postponement or assemble to order. So another strategy of supply chain. There is no point of building a huge inventory because that is a cost, and if you're not able to sell it, then again it is a problem. For example, um, when you are buying a car, most of the people do not buy cars in December. So by default, in December, the production of cars is always on the lower side, and they start building up in January. They don't want to have cars which they build in December but not able to sell it because then nobody will buy in the next year. It's typical thing which happens in India. Then again, the color of the cars. For example, if the I really do not want to put every color 100 pieces. I need to figure it out that which color is appeasing to the market, and some colors are something typically on order only. I will say, okay, you have to wait for this color because not in high in demand. So not all the colors company makes on daily basis. Some fast moving colors they are having in their yards, but not for every other color. So assemble to order kind of stuff. um, Strategically manage the sources of supply. Now this is very important because I am as fast as my weakest link or as fast as my slower supplier. So I need to manage my source of supply strategically to ensure that my overall cost is reducing, and at the same time I am having all the things available well on time with good services, and my margins are increasing. So if I'm not piling the stock, and at the same time I'm giving enough business to my suppliers, it's a win-win situation. And again, I do not want to spend a lot on the logistics. So if you look from big industries, there are a lot of small industries start building, we call it ancillaries, start developing near to those industries which cater to the big industry. So that's a typical suppliers which work in. So uh, when Tata Nano was in West Bengal, and a lot of small industries start uh, blooming over there because a lot of machining requirement, a lot of small part manufacture needs to be there. They start building those plants along with Tata Nano plant in West Bengal, because there's no point of procuring all that material from Uttar Pradesh or from Haryana over there. So they all those setups start happening in West Bengal, and the moment that factory moves out, the entire business goes for a toss. And now in Gujarat, there are a lot of engineers who are building those work. So we need to work with the key suppliers. Similarly, when we are, let's say, I am a logistic company who is moving truck from one place to another place, so I need to ensure that I have a complete channel of repair workshops in place, so that if there is a breakdown, then I know that I have a towing service, I know I have a repair mechanism to it, and at the same time I know that I can put that material all the way to another truck, so that the end customer is still receiving the material on time, and I'm able to repair my truck while the other truck is taking the same goods. So these things are very important when we talk about um, um, sources of supply. So this is a typical graph, which we say that this is the price, which is a procured price, and this is the blue one is the base commodity index price. So this is the price on which index is moving, and between this, right, this is the margin of the supplier. So you want to maximize this particular margin uh, in your managing your suppliers altogether, because all the suppliers are actually worried about this very margin, right? And that's where you have to maximize it. You have to set up the facilities, you have to uh, build your inventories accordingly. Number six, develop a supply chain wide technology strategy. So as one of the correct cornerstones of successful supply chain management, information technology must be able to support multiple levels of decision making. It also should afford a clear view and ability to measure the flow of products, services, and information. Now, take an example. At all levels, right? At a worker level, the information is very different to the way the top management is looking to. For example, if I am into a logistics company, my management is interested in to know that which sector is doing well, and which sector are not doing well, what are the reasons to it, where are the breakdowns, and where the demand. Now, a level below, my I will be focusing more on my region, that uh, how good my region is doing. Can I increase my capacity? Do I have more business to it? Um, and then it goes to the typical human HR problems over there. A lower level, people are more into their own progress. Their vision starts screwing up, saying that, okay, I need to maintain my truck, I need to maintain my vehicle. For this, what I need now, this information needs to be, now that what top management needs is actually coming from the bottom, but the representation of the information is very different. And that's where the technology strategy is very important. For example, today we are talking about um, you know uh, sensors in trucks, in cars, which can monitor the health of your vehicle and predictably can say, okay, your brake pads are done, your engine oil is supposed to be changed, so that you can avoid any breakdown on the roads. And at the same time, the information management is that how many breakdowns I have, or have I reduced my breakdowns over the period of time at the organization level. So if I have a technology which can cater to the lowest level to the highest level, that will be very beneficial for us in supply chain management. The last one, adopt channel spanning performance measure. So when I say that my supply chain is great, I need to be able to measure the performance of my supply chain. And It is just not like my internal stuff, right? I need to think from the service perspective. I need to have the financial metrics that am I able to save money, or if I am putting too much of money without giving value to the customer, right? And that's where this performance measure comes. So my priority is I need to have a very fast moving supply chain, right? So I put a lot of money over there. At the same time, will that money is actually making it fast? I want to have a high speed truck or a high speed motorboat, but that really helps me or not? That's how where we will say that we need to measure the supply chain performance, because sometimes we overspend in supply chain without knowing that we are not uh, getting any value out of it. Sometimes we really do not spend in our supply chain, saying that everything is working fine. At the same time, we are losing a lot of business in the market in a typical territory altogether. So manufacturing versus service supply chain. So understand that supply chain is equally important for services, where it is more of a human interaction. For example, when you are calling a call center and they are solving a query and moving from one department to another department and then finally making a solution to your query, or it's manufacturing where you are procuring materials and then taking from one aspect to another manufacturer, adding values till the final customer is able to consume it. So in service, supply chain factors forms human forms main factor. Sorry. In manufacturing, supply chain things are standardized a lot. So the more the standard, the better it is, because then I can build robustness, continuity, inventory levels in my supply chain. Service supply chains are subjected to higher variations, because every customer will behave differently. If you work in a call center, every customer behaves differently. They have a very different way of articulating the things. They have a very different set of problems. Um, uh, and there is a high variation to it. Focus of efficiencies in service supply chain is on management of capacity, flexibility of resources, you know, cash flow management. So that's where the service things comes in. Manufacturing is pretty stable on those aspects. Service supply chains are more compact and less extended, right? So when I call a call center, I have limited options to talk. I have limited things to do, and at times they simply say this service cannot be done by us. So it's very limited buffet you have for supply chains. In manufacturing, everything is pretty much standardized. So this ends your session one, where we cover the basics of supply chain. If you have any questions, do drop me email or post your questions in the forums. I would like to answer them. I hope you all have enjoyed this session. Thank you and see you next week. Bye bye.